For centuries, the Galactic Council had ruled over countless star systems. They were powerful, unchallenged, and confident in their authority. Every civilization they contacted had followed their rules without question. Rebellions were rare, and when they happened, they were crushed quickly. To the Council, their power was absolute. They were accustomed to fear and obedience, and no species had ever dared to challenge them until they noticed humanity. At first, the Council had barely paid attention to Earth. It was just another small, seemingly insignificant planet tucked away in a quiet corner of the galaxy. But over the years, signals of human activity had begun to reach them. Reports came in from remote probes, observing technology that advanced faster than any comparable species. Humans were curious, clever, and unpredictable. They learned fast, adapted faster, and in ways the Council hadn't seen before. The Council held a meeting, their enormous chamber filled with delegates from hundreds of worlds. They spoke in a language of authority, their voices echoing in the grand hall. Some spoke of curiosity, wondering what made humans so different. Others were worried. They debated quietly at first, but the conversation quickly turned to a decision. That had been easy with other species. They would assert control over Earth before it became a problem. It was routine for them. They had a process. First, send a formal message. Second, make their expectations clear. Third, show their power if. The message was ignored. Simple, efficient. And to them, Earth would be no exception. The message they sent was clear and precise. Humans were expected to submit to the Galactic Council's authority, follow the laws of the galaxy, and accept guidance from the established order. The tone was firm but polite, the kind of tone used for species that had no chance to resist. The Council expected an immediate reply, one of fear, panic, or polite acceptance. Earth received the message in a very different way than the Council expected. Governments were informed immediately, but there was no panic. Instead, there was a quiet determination. Scientists, strategists, and leaders from all over the planet convened, forming a joint council. They studied the message carefully, decoding every nuance and assessing what it meant for their world. No one on Earth believed that submission was necessary. Humans had faced challenges before: wars, disasters, even threats that seemed impossible. They had always found a way to survive, to adapt, and to overcome. This was no different. The Council might have ruled the galaxy, but humanity was not. Afraid, the Human Council debated for hours, considering every possible response. Some argued for diplomacy, some for silence, some for a show of force. But in the end, they decided on a response that would shock the Council: a firm refusal. Humanity would not bow to any external authority, no matter how powerful. The response was short, direct, and confident. There was no anger, no aggression, but there was a clear message. Humans were independent, and they were prepared to defend that independence. When the message was sent, the Council expected chaos on Earth, maybe even fear. They expected compliance after humans understood the consequences. What they received instead was calm, deliberate resistance. The Council was puzzled. For the first time in memory, they faced a species that was unafraid of them. They watched. As humans did something they had never seen before, they prepared. Earth did not act recklessly. They didn't threaten the Council. They didn't boast. Instead, they organized. Space programs increased funding, and research labs worked around the clock. Every major military command prepared for possible scenarios. Humans were ready for negotiation, yes, but they were also ready for defense. Meanwhile, the Council debated their next move. Some delegates were convinced that humans were bluffing, that no species could match the power of the Council. Others began to worry that Earth had unknown capabilities. They had underestimated humanity's intelligence, resourcefulness, and determination. What made humans truly different, the Council began to realize, was not technology alone. It was their spirit, their unshakable will to survive and to protect their home. No civilization the Council had ever encountered had shown this level of determination. Other species obeyed out of fear or out of convenience. Humans obeyed no one. The Council decided on a demonstration of power. They would send a fleet to Earth's orbit, enough to intimidate, enough to show that resistance was futile. This was standard practice. They did not plan to attack unless absolutely necessary. They wanted to remind humans of the Council's authority. When the fleet appeared, it was massive, larger than any human had ever seen. Ships filled the sky, casting shadows across oceans and continents. For a moment, Earth's people looked up and held their breath. But then nothing happened. There were no screams, no chaos, no immediate surrender. Humans responded with calm precision. Their planetary defenses activated, satellites moved into position, and communications channels hummed with coordination. Military leaders gave instructions. Scientists monitored every movement of the alien fleet, and civilians watched quietly from their homes, trusting that their leaders had prepared for this moment. The Council's fleet moved cautiously, expecting fear, expecting submission. Instead, they were met with readiness. Earth had not only anticipated their arrival, but had prepared for it in ways the Council had not considered. It was as if the humans had been waiting for this exact moment, and they were ready to respond intelligently. Some delegates began to doubt. Could a single species truly resist them? Others whispered that humans might have allies, or technology far beyond what the Council had imagined. They could not see all of Earth's preparations, and the unknown made them uneasy. The humans did something extraordinary. They requested a private meeting. Not a broadcast, not a public display, but a meeting in which the Council could speak directly to Earth's representatives. To the Council, this was strange. Other species begged for mercy or submitted entirely. Humans, on the other hand, wanted discussion. They wanted equality. As the Council considered the request, they realized that Earth's confidence was not a bluff. Humans were calm, organized, and prepared. The more the delegates observed, the more they realized they had underestimated a species that seemed small and insignificant, but had hidden depths of ingenuity, strategy, and courage. For the first time, the Galactic Council faced uncertainty. They were used to control, used to fear, and used to obedience. But humanity was different. They did not fear. They did not tremble. And most importantly, they did not submit. It was a quiet revelation, but one that would change everything. The Council, despite their centuries of dominance, had encountered something unexpected. A species with the potential not just to survive, but to challenge the very rules of the galaxy. Humans continued their preparations, working day and night. They did not act aggressively, but they did not hesitate. Scientists tested new defense systems. Engineers built advanced monitoring equipment, and leaders coordinated with every country on the planet. Every person on Earth knew, in some small way, that they were part of a historic moment. Their world had been noticed by powers far beyond their understanding, and they would not bow. The Council, meanwhile, began to realize that Earth's response was not typical. No fear, no submission, just calm, focused determination. It was a species unlike any they had encountered. And as they watched, the Council understood that their assumptions had been wrong. Humans were not just another planet to control. They were a force that demanded attention, respect, and perhaps even fear. And so, the first chapter of humanity's confrontation with the Galactic Council closed quietly. The Council had sent their message, and humans had replied, not with aggression, not with panic, but with calm, unshakable resolve. It was a simple refusal, yet it shook the foundations of the galaxy's most powerful governing body. The delegates left the meeting hall with unease. They had expected compliance, but instead they found challenge. And for the first time, they began to ask themselves, what if humanity was more than they had ever imagined? Humans went to sleep that night with a quiet confidence. They had not surrendered. They had not acted recklessly. They had simply stood firm, prepared, and ready for whatever came next. And the galaxy, for the first time in centuries, began to realize that Earth was not a world to underestimate. Earth had a quiet but steady rhythm in the days following the Council's ultimatum. Life on the planet continued as usual for billions, but beneath the surface, a network of coordination and preparation had begun that no one outside the government and scientific circles could fully see. From space agencies to research institutes, from military command centers to local engineering teams, humans were working in ways that combined ingenuity, patience, and determination. Every message from the Council was carefully studied. Every word, every tone, every implied threat was analyzed. The human Council knew that the aliens did not understand them. To the Council, submission was normal. Fear was natural. Compliance was expected. Humans were different. They had always been different. That difference, the ability to think independently and act strategically, became their greatest asset. Meetings continued around the clock. Scientists shared updates on advances in propulsion technology, energy storage, and communication systems. Engineers designed defensive measures that could detect and respond to threats far beyond Earth's immediate atmosphere. Military strategists simulated every scenario, running hundreds of models in parallel, testing responses to alien strategies that were still mostly unknown. Every decision was carefully calculated, with the knowledge that failure could have consequences. For the entire species, despite the seriousness, there was no panic. Human focus was not fueled by fear, but by resolve. Across the planet, people went about their daily lives, unaware of the scale of preparation happening behind the scenes. Teachers taught children, workers completed their jobs, farmers tended the land, and scientists and engineers worked tirelessly in labs and command centers. Each individual contributed, knowingly or unknowingly, to a collective effort that united humanity in a way it had never experienced before. One of the most significant aspects of Earth's response was the way humans combined old and new knowledge. While advanced satellites monitored the skies and experimental propulsion systems were tested, humans also drew upon lessons from their past. Strategies learned from centuries of conflict, negotiation, and innovation were applied to new challenges. There was a recognition that technology alone would not win this confrontation. Intelligence, creativity, and patience would be equally vital. The Human Council had a singular goal: to ensure that Earth could withstand any intimidation while keeping the door open for communication. They did not seek war, but they would not shy away from it. The message sent to the Council was clear. Humanity would not be coerced, but they were willing to negotiate on equal terms. This stance puzzled the delegates observing Earth from orbit. It was not defiance born of recklessness. It was a calculated, firm, and confident position that few civilizations had ever maintained. Scientists worked on shields capable of deflecting energy-based attacks, while engineers experimented with communication systems that could intercept and decode messages across multiple frequencies. These systems were not just for defense. They were also designed to monitor the Council's fleet movements, allowing humans to anticipate and respond to any action the aliens might take. In laboratories and workshops, prototypes were built, tested, and refined. Nothing was left to chance. Meanwhile, humans were studying the Council itself. Analysts reviewed every piece of information available, seeking patterns in decision-making, predicting possible reactions, and identifying weaknesses in protocol. It became clear that the Council relied heavily on assumption, that species would respond with fear. That authority alone was enough to enforce obedience. Humanity's calm, deliberate defiance disrupted this expectation and introduced uncertainty into the Council's decision-making. As preparations continued, humans began to understand that perception was as important as capability. The Council expected fear, chaos, or hesitation, but Earth had none of these. Public messages were carefully designed to maintain calm, avoiding panic while subtly signaling readiness. The human species, known for its creativity, found ways to communicate. Determination without aggression. This combination of preparation and communication was new to the galaxy, and it began to unsettle even the most confident Council delegates. In the skies above Earth, satellites and drones moved in coordinated patterns, observing every movement of the alien fleet. At first, the Council noticed nothing unusual, assuming humans were unprepared. But over days and weeks, they observed an unusual level of coordination. The humans were not reacting randomly. They were anticipating, positioning, and calculating. Every action was measured, every signal carefully monitored. It was a level of strategy that the Council had rarely seen in any species, let alone one they considered primitive. Humans also demonstrated remarkable resilience on a social level. Governments set aside disputes to unite for a common cause. Researchers collaborated across continents, sharing knowledge and resources. The human population, largely unaware of the exact details, trusted their leaders and the systems being built. In a way, the preparation itself became a unifying force, connecting people not just to their governments, but to the planet itself. Every scientist, soldier, and citizen was part of a larger effort to ensure Earth's safety and independence. As the days passed, small victories reinforced human confidence. Tests of defense systems were successful. Communication signals intercepted. Alien strategies, allowing humans to refine responses. Simulation drills proved that Earth could withstand attacks far beyond their known capability. Each success, no matter how minor, strengthened resolve. Humans understood the power of preparation, patience, and intelligence, and they knew that calm confidence could be as effective as raw force. The Council began to notice something they had never seen before. Humans were unpredictable, but not irrational. They did not act out of fear or pride. Every move was considered, and yet it could not be predicted with certainty. To the alien delegates, this unpredictability was unsettling. The usual methods of control threats, displays of force, ultimatums, had little effect. Humans seemed immune to intimidation, and this began to change the perception of the species across the galaxy. Humans also began to take steps to communicate strategically with the Council. Messages were carefully crafted, emphasizing their willingness to engage in dialogue without submitting. They did not insult the Council, nor did they appear aggressive. Instead, they asserted their position calmly, emphasizing equality and fairness. This approach surprised the delegates, who were accustomed to either obedience or defiance born of fear. Humanity's response was different. It was composed, thoughtful, and resolute. As Earth prepared, the Council's delegates debated among themselves. Some argued for restraint, fearing that an aggressive approach could lead to unforeseen consequences. Others urged immediate enforcement, confident that the humans could not truly match their power. This internal debate marked a shift. The confidence that had defined the Council for centuries was beginning to waver. A species they had dismissed was now forcing them to consider alternatives. Humans continued to build quietly. Factories operated without disruption. Research centers expanded their work, and communication networks hummed with activity. Every nation contributed in its own way, creating a network of preparedness that spanned the entire globe. The Council, watching from afar, began to recognize the depth of coordination. Humanity was not a disorganized planet. They were a species capable of unified action, capable of thinking strategically across multiple domains simultaneously. By the end of this phase, humans had achieved more than just readiness. They had demonstrated a principle that the Council had never encountered. Determination combined with intelligence could challenge authority without violence. The message was, clear Earth would not be ruled, coerced, or underestimated. Humans had prepared for every possible scenario, and they would act if necessary. But they sought a solution that did not rely on conflict. In the quiet moments between planning sessions, humans reflected on what they were accomplishing. They were not motivated by fear alone. They were motivated by survival. Yes, but also by pride, ingenuity, and the belief that their species deserved respect. Across laboratories, command centers, and even homes, a quiet determination spread. The humans knew they were being watched, but they did not tremble. They were ready to meet the galaxy's gaze on their own terms. And so Earth waited, not passively, but actively. Every day, humans refined their systems, strengthened their networks, and prepared for the unknown. They were ready for dialogue, for negotiation, and if necessary, for defense. What they did not know, however, was how deeply their calm and deliberate preparation was affecting the Council. Across the galaxy, delegates were beginning to doubt the certainty of their own authority. For the first time, a species had forced them to reconsider their assumptions. Humanity had not yet acted. They had not fired a shot, nor had they threatened the Council in any direct way. And yet, their presence, their preparation, and their resolve were already making waves across star systems. The galaxy was beginning to understand that Earth was not just another planet. It was a species that could challenge centuries of authority with nothing more than intelligence, organization, and courage. And so, the second chapter of this confrontation quietly unfolded. Humans did not shout. They did not demand attention. The Council's decision came quickly after days of debate. They could not ignore humanity's calm defiance any longer. No species had ever faced them with such quiet confidence. They were used to obedience or fear, and humanity had given them neither. To the Council, Earth had become an anomaly, a problem that required demonstration of authority. A fleet of enormous ships was assembled, far larger than anything Earth had seen. These were not simple spacecraft. They were armadas designed to intimidate, to project strength, and to enforce submission. From distant star systems, the Council's fleet moved toward Earth, cutting through space with an efficiency and precision that was almost terrifying. Every ship was armed with the latest technology, equipped to neutralize any planetary threat. On Earth, the humans noticed the fleet almost immediately. Satellites picked up the movement, and data from long-range sensors confirmed the arrival of vessels far beyond their immediate space. There was no panic. There was no chaos. Instead, there was focus. People in command centers monitored every movement, every signal, every adjustment in formation. Every department, from engineering to communications to defense, sprang into action. Humans had prepared for this exact moment. While the Council believed they were showing overwhelming power, Earth was ready. The military and scientific councils coordinated seamlessly, executing plans that had been rehearsed countless times. Communication lines were opened between nations, sharing information in real time. Every team knew its role. Every system was active and tested. The first thing humans did was observe. They did not react immediately with force. They watched, listened, and calculated. Satellites scanned the fleet, detecting propulsion systems, energy signatures, and even communications between ships. Drones moved into orbit to gather additional data. Humans wanted to know everything about their visitors before making any decision. This careful patience was unlike anything the Council had ever seen. The Council, confident in their power, expected fear. They expected Earth to panic or to signal submission. Instead, humans moved with calm precision. Commands were relayed across continents. People worked tirelessly in labs, and engineers fine-tuned defensive systems. In many ways, Earth was a single unified organism, responding intelligently and efficiently to an alien presence that should have caused chaos. Earth's response was both subtle and clear. Defensive satellites adjusted their orbits, not aggressively, but strategically, creating layers of detection and interception that could respond to any action. Advanced sensors began to track every council ship, gathering precise data for analysis. At the same time, communications channels began transmitting messages designed to test the fleet's capabilities, without escalating tension. Humans were probing, learning, and adapting. Meanwhile, the Council watched with unease. Their fleet had been sent to demonstrate power, but nothing about Earth's response indicated fear. In fact, humans appeared calm, organized, and prepared. Some delegates began to whisper that they might have underestimated the species. Others argued that this calmness was a bluff, that humans would break under pressure. But as hours passed and Earth's precision continued, doubt began to spread. Humans also used this time to strengthen planetary systems. Energy grids were fortified to resist interference. Defense satellites were synchronized to detect and respond. Within seconds, communication systems were prepared for electronic countermeasures. Humans had anticipated that the Council might attempt to disrupt operations, and they were ready for every contingency. What surprised the Council most was humanity's strategic patience. They did not rush to respond aggressively. They did not make threats. They waited, observed, and acted only when necessary. This level of discipline, combined with intelligence, made the Council uneasy. For the first time, they faced a species that did not react predictably, a species that was not motivated by fear, but by calculated resolve. In cities around the world, people watched the skies. They saw unusual lights and movements, but were given no reason to panic. Civilian broadcasts emphasized calm, providing updates without alarm. Children went to school, workers went to their jobs, and scientists continued their work. Humanity's ability to maintain normal life while coordinating global defense was remarkable. It showed the Council that the strength of a species was not only in technology, but in the unity and resilience of its people. As the fleet reached Earth's orbit, the first signals of the Council's presence were detected. Humans intercepted communications and decoded messages almost instantly, revealing information about the fleet's command structure and operational plans. Engineers worked to translate these signals, identifying possible weaknesses and patterns. This intelligence allowed humans to anticipate moves before they happened, giving them an edge that the Council had not expected. The Council tried to intimidate. They maneuvered their ships into formations meant to appear threatening, fired non-lethal energy pulses as warnings, and even made loud, projected broadcasts warning of consequences if humans did not comply. Earth responded, but not with fear or aggression. Their defense systems absorbed the pulses without damage, and their responses were precise, neutral, and calculated. Humans made it clear they were prepared for defense, but were not seeking conflict. This calm, measured defiance unnerved the Council. Their centuries of power and control had never faced such resistance without direct aggression. Every move the fleet made was met with intelligent observation and preparation, making them question the assumptions they had made about human behavior. They began to realize that Earth was not just another planet. They were facing a species that could think, adapt, and coordinate at an extraordinary level. Humans also began to take steps to communicate strategically. Instead of aggressive messages, they sent calculated signals demonstrating readiness and intelligence. The messages were not threats, but statements of resolve, emphasizing that Earth would not submit but remained open to dialogue. This approach confused and unsettled the council. They expected panic, not reasoning. They expected chaos, not calm. Coordination. For days, the fleet hovered over Earth, attempting to assert authority. Every action was met with careful observation, intelligence gathering, and subtle demonstrations of preparedness. Humans activated advanced monitoring satellites, coordinated terrestrial and orbital systems, and ran simulations in real time. They demonstrated that their readiness was not a bluff, but the result of deliberate preparation over months and years. As the hours stretched into days, the council faced a new challenge: uncertainty. They were used to control, to obedience, and to fear. Humanity's calm defiance had introduced doubt into the minds of delegates and commanders alike. They had not expected a species to meet overwhelming force with intelligence and strategic patience. Their confidence began to falter. This pause was critical. Humans continued to refine their systems, ensuring that every satellite, every communication line, and every defense mechanism was operating optimally. Engineers ran simulations. Scientists tested shields, and strategists analyzed every possible move the council might make next. Every day, Earth grew stronger not by firing a shot, but by planning, preparing, and observing. The council began to realize that humans were not simply resisting, they were teaching a lesson. By combining intelligence, patience, and unity, humanity had created a defense that did not rely on aggression, but could withstand it if necessary. The delegates whispered among themselves, wondering if their centuries of power had blinded them to the potential of a single species. For the first time in history, the council faced a species they could not easily control. Humans did not act out of fear. They did not act recklessly. Every move was calculated, deliberate, and coordinated. And every day, their presence and their strategy sent a silent message across the galaxy. Earth would not bow, but it would act intelligently. And it would survive. The humans' actions in these days had an effect far beyond the immediate confrontation. Across the galaxy, observers took note. Civilizations that had long submitted to the council watched as a species resisted not with war, but with intelligence and organization. The story of Earth's calm, deliberate resistance began to spread quietly, inspiring curiosity, caution, and even admiration. And so, Earth's people continued to prepare, to observe, and to assert their independence in the most human way possible, with intelligence, patience, and unity. They did not shout. They did not act impulsively. They simply demonstrated that they were ready for anything, capable of thinking ahead, and willing to defend their home. For the council, the presence of the human fleet below their ships, though small, became something more significant, a symbol of calculated defiance. For humanity, this was only the beginning. The first step had been taken, the foundation of a global response had been laid, and the next move would be critical not just for Earth, but for the galaxy's understanding of what humans were capable of. Days passed, and the Council's fleet remained in orbit over Earth. What they had expected to be a display of dominance had instead become a study in human resilience and strategy. Their ships, massive and imposing, cast shadows over the planet. Yet there was no panic among humans, only a quiet determination. What unsettled the Council most was that humanity had not only prepared for this confrontation, they had hidden strengths the aliens had never anticipated inside Earth's command. Centers, scientists, and engineers worked tirelessly to bring secret projects online. These were not just improvements to existing technology, but breakthroughs that had been quietly developed in hidden research facilities. Humanity had learned much from observing the galaxy. They had studied energy manipulation, propulsion systems, and advanced communications, often in secrecy, anticipating the day they might face a challenge far beyond their immediate capabilities. When the Council's delegates watched human transmissions, they expected fear or a weak defense. Instead, They saw a species that had mastered complexity. Humans had built planetary shields capable of deflecting energy attacks. They had advanced propulsion systems that allowed rapid movement across space. Their communication networks could intercept and decode messages almost instantly. For the Council, it was unlike anything they had anticipated. The first reveal was subtle. A single transmission from Earth demonstrated a new energy system. The Council observed as a pulse of concentrated energy formed a protective barrier around the planet. It was not a show of aggression, but a clear statement. Humans had the technology to defend themselves. Ships that had approached closely found it difficult to scan or interfere with Earth's systems. Every movement of the Council fleet was now being tracked, measured, and recorded. Humans had always been clever, but what impressed the Council was their strategic use of intelligence. They had studied the Council's protocols, noting patterns in behavior, communication, and fleet movement. Every analysis was used to anticipate the next move. The humans were not reacting blindly. They were planning multiple steps ahead, preparing contingencies for every possible scenario. The second reveal came in the form of planetary coordination. Humans had integrated every defense system into a global network, allowing instant communication between cities, satellites, military bases, and laboratories. Every system was interconnected. A command issued in one place could be executed instantly across the planet. To the Council, this level of integration was surprising. They had assumed that a planet-wide species would be too disorganized to coordinate so efficiently. Earth proved them wrong. As the Council attempted to probe human communications, they were met with interference, subtle, intelligent, and precise. Signals were redirected, decoded, or blocked without revealing the source. Humans were using technology in ways the Council had never encountered, blending science, strategy, and adaptability. It was a combination that unsettled even the most confident delegates. Then came the final revelation that truly shook the Council. Humans transmitted evidence of the Council's own violations of galactic law. In secret archives collected over decades, humans had documented instances where the Council had acted unfairly, where systems had been exploited, and where species had suffered under policies that were supposed to ensure order. Earth presented this evidence without aggression, without accusation, but with clarity and precision. The message was simple. Humans knew the truth, and they were prepared to hold the Council accountable. The reaction among the delegates was immediate. Whispers spread through the fleet as data screens displayed reports, recordings, and intercepted communications. Some tried to dismiss the evidence, claiming humans had misunderstood. Others were forced to confront the fact that a species they had underestimated had not only advanced technologically, but had also studied their actions with incredible detail. Humanity was no longer just a planet. They were an observer, an analyzer, and now a challenger to the Council's authority. On Earth, preparations continued quietly. Scientists ran simulations, engineers tested defensive barriers, and analysts monitored the Council's response. Every day brought new insights. Humans were learning not only about the alien technology, but also about their psychology, their decision-making, and their expectations. Every piece of information was used to strengthen Earth's position. The planet's defenses were no longer just shields and sensors. They were the result of understanding an opponent on every possible level. The Council tried to assert authority through communication, sending messages intended to intimidate or confuse humans. But Earth responded strategically, not emotionally. They clarified their position, emphasizing that their goal was not to start a conflict, but to ensure the safety and independence of their planet. Their calm and deliberate tone was unnerving. It was a clear statement. Humans were aware, prepared, and capable. They would not be coerced. Humans also made another subtle move. They demonstrated their ability to project power beyond Earth without being overtly aggressive. Satellites, space drones, and energy transmitters displayed coordinated actions that proved humans could act decisively in space if necessary. Every movement was precise, calculated, and non-threatening, yet it was impossible for the Council to ignore. The message was clear. Earth was ready for anything, and they had the capability to respond effectively. The psychological effect on the Council was profound. Delegates who had once been confident in their control began to question their assumptions. Humans were not behaving like any other species. They were calm in the face of potential destruction, prepared without aggression, and intelligent beyond expectation. For the first time, the Council faced a species that could challenge them not through brute force, but through strategy, unity, and ingenuity. Humans, meanwhile, continued to strengthen alliances within their own planet. Every nation contributed resources, expertise, and labor to ensure that Earth's defenses remained coordinated and resilient. They had created a global system where knowledge and technology flowed freely, allowing the planet to act as a single entity. Civilian life continued, but beneath the surface, a network of preparation and vigilance spanned the globe. Every demonstration of human capability sent ripples through the Council fleet. Delegates debated in private chambers, unsure how to respond. Should they attempt aggression, knowing humans were prepared? Should they attempt negotiation, knowing that any misstep could be exploited? Or should they withdraw and reassess, admitting that their authority was no longer absolute? These questions had never arisen before. Humanity had forced a reconsideration of centuries of assumptions in a matter of days. The most remarkable aspect of this confrontation was the humanity itself. Humans did not act from hatred, fear, or arrogance. They acted from calculation, courage, and unity. Their preparation was meticulous, their strategy precise, and their resolve unwavering. The Council had expected chaos, defiance, or panic. Instead, they found intelligence, patience, and coordination. The difference was striking, and it left the delegates unsettled. The Council tried one last time to assert dominance, moving ships closer to Earth's orbit and sending increasingly complex messages meant to test the planet's defenses. Humans responded calmly, using every system at their disposal to gather information, protect key infrastructure, and maintain order. The response was not aggressive, but it was effective. Every attempt to intimidate was met with intelligence, every challenge with preparation. And then humans made their boldest move yet. They requested a formal meeting with the Council, not through broadcast, not through threats, but through a carefully orchestrated proposal for dialogue. They asked for discussion on equal terms, making it clear that submission was not an option. This request shocked the delegates. Never before had a species faced them so openly, so calmly, and with such confidence. Earth's surveil had changed. Everything. In a matter of days, humans had demonstrated advanced technology, strategic intelligence, unity across nations, and a willingness to hold the Council accountable. They had challenged centuries of authority, not with aggression, but with preparation, calculation, and courage. The Council was left uncertain, uneasy, and forced to reconsider everything they thought they knew about power, control, and influence. For humans, this was only the beginning. They had not sought war. They had not sought dominance. They had simply acted in the most human way possible, with intelligence, resilience, and a refusal to submit to unfair authority. The revelation of their capabilities had sent a clear message to the galaxy. Humanity would not be underestimated, and their planet would remain free. And so, the fourth chapter of this confrontation ended not with explosions or violence, but with understanding. The Council had seen what humans were capable of. They had realized that intelligence, unity, and preparation could challenge authority in ways they had never experienced. Humans had not yet acted offensively, but the galaxy had already taken note. Earth had shown that it was no longer just a planet. It was a species to be respected, feared, and carefully considered. The day arrived when humans decided it was time to speak directly to the Council. Months of observation, preparation, and planning had led to this moment. Across Earth, people went about their lives, but behind the scenes, the planet was a hive of coordination. Scientists, engineers, and strategists worked together, reviewing every detail, ensuring that the message would be precise, clear, and impactful. They knew this was more than a message. It was a statement of humanity's place in the galaxy. Humans did not approach this lightly. They had learned from the Council's behavior, from the mistakes of other civilizations, and from their own. Research. Their communication would not be angry or threatening. It would not boast or exaggerate. Instead, it would be calm, firm, and intelligent. It would make clear that humanity did not seek war, but it would not submit to control. The message began with an introduction that was polite but confident. It acknowledged the Council's long history and authority across the galaxy. Then it shifted. It explained humanity's achievements, advancements, and the unique qualities that made humans different. It highlighted innovation, resilience, and the ability to work together across a global scale. The Council listened, or at least the delegates in orbit did, carefully. With growing unease, humans emphasized that they were capable of defense. They had shields, advanced communication systems, and energy management technologies that allowed them to detect and respond to threats. Every claim was supported by evidence gathered over months. Satellites, drones, and sensors transmitted data to the Council in real time, showing that Earth was prepared. This was not a threat. It was a statement of readiness. Next, humanity addressed the Council's assumptions. They explained that they had observed the Council carefully, studied patterns, and understood how decisions were made. They spoke of fairness, accountability, and the responsibilities that came with power. Humans did not accuse or challenge aggressively. They made observations, presented facts, and requested equality. This calm, reasoned approach unsettled the Council. No species had ever spoken to them in this way. The core of the message was clear. Earth would not submit, but it sought dialogue. Humans invited the Council to consider cooperation rather than domination. They emphasized that authority was not enough to earn respect, and that true leadership required fairness, transparency, and mutual understanding. The words were simple, but the meaning was profound. Humanity was asserting itself as an equal, not a subordinate. The Council's delegates reacted with a mix of disbelief, anger, and caution. They had never faced a species that refused to bow without fighting, that demanded respect without making threats. Many argued that humans would not be able to enforce such a position. Others, however, began to realize that humanity had not only prepared, but had strategically positioned itself to make this position effective. On Earth, the message was monitored and approved at the highest levels. The Human Council ensured that every word, every pause, every tone conveyed intelligence, unity, and resolve. There were no exaggerations, no unnecessary provocations, no displays of arrogance. Every sentence was calculated to convey clarity and strength. It was a human approach, direct, honest, and grounded in reason. The response to the Council was more than words. Humans demonstrated coordinated activity across the planet. Satellites moved, energy grids adjusted, and sensors tracked every possible signal. It was a quiet demonstration of capability, showing that humanity could act decisively, if needed. At the same time, it reinforced that their first choice was dialogue and understanding. As the message circulated through the Council fleet, delegates began to debate again. Some wanted to respond with force, believing that humans would eventually break. Others suggested caution, noting the intelligence, preparation, and unity of the species. For the first time, centuries of unquestioned authority were being challenged not by a weapon, but by reason and strategy. Humans reinforced their position by referencing not just technology, but history. They spoke of lessons learned from survival, from collaboration, and from challenges faced on Earth. They highlighted the importance of fairness and accountability, qualities that the Council had often failed to maintain. It was a reminder that authority alone was not enough. Respect must be earned, and humanity had prepared to claim its place. The Council's attempts to intimidate became less effective. Every warning, every maneuver, every attempt at dominance was met with calm observation and precise responses. Humans had created a system where preparation, intelligence, and communication were stronger than fear. The Council began to realize that Earth's strength lay not just in technology, but in the cohesion of its people and their ability to act as one. Across the globe, humans continued to strengthen their position. Scientists improved satellite networks, engineers refined communication systems, and strategists analyzed potential outcomes. Every measure taken reinforced the message. Earth would not be coerced, but it was ready to negotiate, adapt, and respond intelligently to any situation. Humanity's determination was evident in every action, every transmission, and every calculated movement. The Council could not ignore it. Their fleet, once a symbol of overwhelming power, now seemed cautious, uncertain. Delegates whispered in private chambers, trying to determine whether humanity's calm defiance was bluff or reality. Every observation of Earth's coordinated activity added weight to the conclusion that humans were prepared, capable, and intelligent beyond expectation. Humans also emphasized their willingness to engage constructively. They proposed that the Council reconsider policies based on mutual respect rather than fear. They suggested reforms, transparency, and collaboration across star systems. It was a bold move, one that could have been seen as insolent, but humans delivered it with calm logic and reason. Their approach was rooted in the idea that strength came not from dominance, but from intelligence, cooperation, and shared understanding. The Council began to see a new possibility, that humanity could help reshape the galaxy. If other species were influenced by fear, humans could demonstrate the value of reason and strategic planning. This realization unsettled many delegates who feared losing control, but it also inspired curiosity. Humanity had achieved something extraordinary. They had challenged authority without aggression, without chaos, and without surrender. The message concluded with a simple, powerful statement. Earth sought dialogue, respect, and cooperation. Submission was not an option, but humanity's goal was not conflict. The words were concise, clear, and firm. They reflected the essence of human determination, intelligent, patient, and confident, yet not reckless or cruel. The Council had been forced to listen, not to threats, but to logic, strategy, and unity. For the first time, a species had confronted the Council and forced them to reconsider their assumptions. The delegates realized that their power, while immense, was not absolute. Humanity had shown that intelligence, preparation, and courage could challenge centuries of authority. They had not fired a shot, yet their message had altered the balance of perception across the galaxy. Humans continued to reinforce their position, not through aggression, but through coordinated action. Satellites and drones moved precisely. Energy grids adjusted, and global communication networks transmitted data seamlessly. Every action demonstrated readiness, discipline, and unity. The Council could see that humans were not merely capable, they were extraordinary in their ability to act together, think strategically, and maintain calm under pressure. In quiet moments across Earth, people reflected on what had been achieved. They were not motivated by fear, hatred, or desire for dominance. They acted because they understood the stakes, because they valued their planet, and because they believed in their ability to defend it. Every scientist, engineer, soldier, and citizen contributed to a collective effort that had forever changed their relationship with the galaxy. The Council, meanwhile, began to reassess everything. What had once been unquestioned authority now faced scrutiny. Delegates debated how to proceed, recognizing that humans were not only prepared for defense, but also capable of influencing the galaxy in ways they had not anticipated. Their calm, strategic, and intelligent approach had forced the Council to consider alternatives to force. And so, humanity's final message reached its full impact. It was not just words, nor just a demonstration of capability. It was a statement of principle. Earth would not submit. Earth would defend itself if necessary. And Earth would engage, not with anger or fear, but with intelligence, courage, and unity. The Council had been challenged, not by weapons, but by the very essence of what it meant to be human. This moment would be remembered not as the start of conflict, but as a turning point. Humans had claimed their place among the stars, not through dominance, but through strategy, preparation, and reason. The message was simple yet powerful. The galaxy would never underestimate Earth again. After humanity's final message to the Council, a quiet tension settled over the fleet orbiting Earth. For the first time in centuries, the Council faced uncertainty on a massive scale. They had expected obedience or fear. They had expected humans to tremble at the sight of their ships or submit to authority. Instead, they had received calm, reasoned, and strategic defiance, supported by evidence, preparation, and a clear demonstration of capability. Delegates whispered among themselves. Some wanted to act aggressively, fearing that failure to assert dominance would encourage rebellion across other star systems. Others, more cautious, suggested withdrawing and reassessing. The humans had done something no species had ever done. They had challenged the Council without anger, without chaos, and without violence, yet with complete effectiveness. On Earth, life continued, but it was never quite the same. People went to work, children attended schools, and cities functioned normally, but everyone knew the world had changed. Humanity had faced the galaxy's most powerful governing body and stood firm. They had not fired a shot, but they had proven that courage, intelligence, and unity could alter the course of history. Humans continued to monitor the Council's fleet carefully. Satellites scanned ships, drones moved along predetermined paths, and analysts interpreted every signal. There was no aggression in these actions, only vigilance. Humanity had learned that strength was not only in weapons or numbers, but in strategy, preparation, and awareness. Every move was calculated to maintain peace while ensuring readiness for any scenario. Meanwhile, the Council struggled with the unexpected. Delegates debated endlessly, reviewing data from human transmissions, analyzing evidence of Earth's capabilities, and reconsidering assumptions about species behavior. They realized that humans had not only advanced technologically, but had also mastered coordination and strategy. Their planet operated as a single organism, capable of intelligent, precise, and rapid responses. The Council's confidence began to falter. Humans had shown that authority alone was insufficient. Evidence of past injustices, demonstrations of energy shields, advanced satellites, and communication systems, all of these challenged the Council's perception of power. They began to understand that humanity could not be intimidated, and that any attempt at coercion might result in consequences far beyond expectation. On Earth, the Human Council made careful, deliberate choices. They continued to strengthen planetary systems, ensuring that communication networks, defense systems, and observation satellites remained operational and coordinated. They improved energy storage and distribution, refined defense algorithms, and tested contingency plans for every possible scenario. Humanity had not sought confrontation, but they were prepared to defend their home with precision if necessary. Over time, the Council realized that the humans' approach was not just about technology, it was about mindset. Humans were patient, observant, and deliberate. They did not react impulsively. They did not act from fear. They prepared, analyzed, and responded intelligently. This combination of qualities made them unpredictable in a way that the Council had never experienced, and it became their greatest strength. Delegates began to speak of humans in a new way. No longer were they just a primitive species from a small planet. They were now a force to be reckoned with, a species capable of reshaping assumptions about power, authority, and strategy. The Council had faced rebellions before, but never with this level of discipline, intelligence, and calm resolve. Humans were unlike any species they had ever encountered. As the days passed, the Council decided to withdraw their fleet slightly, taking a more cautious approach. They maintained observation, but the aggressive posturing ceased. Humans had demonstrated that they were not to be underestimated, and the risk of overreaction was too great. It was the first time in history that the Council had retreated without a battle, forced by a species that had not raised a weapon. Humans, for their part, maintained vigilance. They continued to operate satellites, monitor signals, and refine their systems. The planet remained calm on the surface, but behind the scenes, humanity's readiness continued. They understood that this was not a victory in the traditional sense. It was a demonstration of principle, intelligence, and unity. They had earned the respect of the galaxy without firing a shot. Across the universe, other civilizations began to take notice. Reports of Earth's defiance spread quietly through the star systems. Species that had long submitted to the Council began to watch with interest. They observed how humans combined intelligence, preparation, and patience to challenge authority. It became clear that Earth had achieved something unprecedented. They had forced the most powerful governing body in the galaxy to reconsider its own assumptions. Humanity's example began to inspire others. While the Council remained powerful, the perception of its absolute authority was diminished. Other planets and species realized that submission was not the only path. The actions of humans, calm but strategic, demonstrated that courage, intelligence, and unity could create change without destruction. Earth's approach became a model for those who valued independence and reason over fear. On Earth, the Human Council decided to formalize communication with the Council. They sent messages that were polite, clear, and confident. They emphasized the desire for dialogue, collaboration, and mutual respect. Submission was not part of the message, but neither was aggression. It was a call for recognition and understanding, rooted in intelligence, strategy, and humanity's enduring spirit. The Council, receiving these messages, began to consider new policies. Delegates debated reforms, transparency, and collaboration. They realized that humans had challenged their authority in a way that no one else had, and that any attempt to suppress or dominate Earth might result in unintended consequences. Humanity had shifted the balance not through force, but through principle, preparation, and strategy. For humans, life gradually returned to a sense of normalcy, but the world was forever changed. People had witnessed their species face a cosmic authority and emerge unbowed. They had seen that intelligence, unity, and preparation could achieve results that brute force alone could not. Across the planet, a sense of pride and purpose grew, reinforcing the idea that humanity had a place among the stars, not as subjects, but as equals. The Council's withdrawal marked a new era. Their fleet remained nearby, but distant, observing, rather than threatening. Humans continued to refine systems, share knowledge, and strengthen planetary networks. The stage was set for a new kind of interaction, one based on understanding, intelligence, and mutual respect. Earth had not conquered the galaxy, but it had reshaped how the galaxy perceived it. Humanity's victory was quiet but profound. It was not a battle won with weapons or firepower. It was a victory of strategy, unity, intelligence, and principle. The species had proven that courage did not always come from aggression, and that power could be challenged through preparation and reasoning. The message was simple yet powerful. Humans were not to be underestimated, and Earth would always defend its independence intelligently and decisively. As the Council retreated further, humans prepared for the next steps. They monitored communications, improved planetary defenses, and strengthened global coordination. At the same time, they explored opportunities for diplomacy, research, and collaboration with other civilizations. Humanity had demonstrated strength without conflict, intelligence without arrogance, and unity without fear. The galaxy, for the first time, began to see Earth differently. Humans were no longer just a planet of curiosity. They were a species capable of influencing galactic perception through reason, strategy, and courage. Their calm defiance had forced a reassessment of authority, and their intelligence had earned them respect. Across countless star systems, other civilizations began to reconsider their assumptions about what was possible when a species united with intelligence and principle. In quiet moments across the planet, humans reflected on what they had accomplished. They had faced overwhelming power and not faltered. They had demonstrated that preparation, unity, and intelligence could achieve results that force alone could not. They had proven that humanity's strength was not just in technology, but in courage, reasoning, and the ability to act together. The Council's fleets, now withdrawn but still watching, were forced to acknowledge a fundamental truth. Earth was not a planet to control, coerce, or underestimate. Humans had changed the rules of interaction. They had created a precedent that would ripple across the galaxy. Other species, inspired or cautious, would remember Earth as a symbol of calm defiance, intelligence, and strategic strength. And so, humanity entered a new era. The confrontation with the Council had ended without war, but it had begun a transformation. Earth was now recognized as a planet to respect, and humans as a species capable of standing against even the most powerful forces in the galaxy. There, victory was not measured in destruction or conquest, but in principle, preparation, and intelligence. The galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had arrived, not with weapons, but with courage, unity, and reason. They had proven that strength could take many forms, that intelligence and principle could rival power, and that a determined species could shape the course of history without a single shot being fired. Earth's people